Oil, keep going. It's up a little bit, but it's hovering around 75.5 bucks a barrel. Traffic through the Strait of Hormuz picking up. Free-flowing crude we've got. Inflation coming in hot this morning. We've got the personal consumption expenditures reading the Fed Reserve pays attention to, gaining 4.1% year over year, back above 4% for the first time in 3 years. A reminder that the fight against inflation ain't over. Neither is the possibility of another interest rate hike. When is the question? But the U.S. economy is chugging along. The final reading on GDP in the first quarter topping expectations at 2.1% actual growth. And with the peace holding in the Persian Gulf, President Trump says it is all up from here.
I am thrilled to declare that America is back. As you know very well, a short time ago, we were a dead country. We were dead. Now we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. America's 250th year is set for an economic boom, the lights of which no nation has ever seen before. No nation has ever been in the place that we are right now.
Well, is the boom priced in, given what, say, the NASDAQ has done this year?
Is that to me?
Yeah. I'm looking at you, Murphy.
Okay. The boom is not priced in. We've had a nice run, but we've had that run while we had a war going on and uncertainty around when it was going to end and what the final outcome would be. It looks like we have more certainty around that now. But the boom has a long way to go because of what's going on in this country with AI, with technology, with talk about the earnings that are coming in, with the demand for energy, with the demand for power, with the demand for artificial intelligence, with the productivity that's going to put to the bottom line of these companies. There's a lot more to go here. This is a boom, as President Trump would say, like you've never seen before.
Well, Apple's going kaboom today as it raises prices.
You want to talk about that? Apple's down 6 1/3, 6.5%. And I think people right now are trying to question how much of this can they blame on Micron. Apple for itself is saying the prices of memory have gotten so expensive that now we have no choice but to pass them on to consumers. So clearly they are protecting profit margins at the expense of consumer. Clearly they're figuring out we have pricing power. You don't. We're a price maker, not a price taker. We set the price, raising prices $200, $300, $400 across pretty much all devices. But, you know, Dagan, we talk about that, but that sort of goes in stark contrast to some of the, I think, positive economic data that you highlighted in the opening. My only concern here is within PCE, core services ex housing is 3.9. That was the measure after COVID that I know it was a previous Federal Reserve. But that Fed at the time said this is what we track to measure spillover effects in inflation. They missed that, obviously, at the time. And so I think that's something that at 3.9 makes people worried about how quickly maybe this can come down. And if this is more than energy. Yes, Jackie, you're next.
Pick me.
But again, a lot of the GDP was, and all of these growth numbers, their profit margins and rising CapEx tied to AI. Final domestic purchase, final sales were up 5.5% in the last year. So there's strong, solid demand at the end of the day. But I think people are wondering, is this all CapEx and what does this mean?
All right, I'm going to crush this PCE number right now. It didn't sound great with the 4.1% annual rate, but the core overall, including housing, was 3.4%. So it was up 0.3% for the month. And that's being cited as the highest core reading we've seen since October 2023, which doesn't generally sound great. However, this was the May report where oil prices were substantially higher, and even core, stripping out food and energy, oil goes into everything else, and so prices are impacted as a result of it. When you think about what the oil price has been doing, most of this last drop has come in June. So I would not panic about this number, and I would look to the June number and have this work its way through the system. The White House issued a statement on this. They said that the expectation-beating May PCE report reinforces that temporary disruptions to energy markets as a result of the Iranian conflict are not passing through to non-energy goods. Now that President Trump's historic MOU with Iran is now signed and in effect, energy prices are plummeting and overall inflation will quickly follow suit. So I agree with the back part of that statement, which is once this $70 oil factors in, it's going to all start to look better. And this will truly be transient, unlike last time when they told us it was transient and it wasn't.
Mike, what happens if after 60 days we say we didn't get the deal we wanted?
Yeah.
And the president says, we got to go in. Is that going to mess up your the best days are ahead, it's not priced in thesis? Like, are you worried about, I know you're Mr. Sunshine, but like,
I was
how do
gonna
you
say,
bake
I'm
that in?
hesitant to answer because of the blowback, but that's the best case scenario. So we go in, we take over, whether it's Carg Island or the Strait of Hormuz, or we take over the money from Iran because they don't agree to a deal. We did everything we could to make a deal. We don't get the deal.
Yeah.
We go in, we take it over. It's not boots on the ground, not regime change, but now we control the money directly. Where's that money going? Is it going to the IRGC? When the money goes into Iran, I think that's how you would get a regime change. So I think the president's giving them every opportunity to not be more forceful, but we're talking about an agreement with a terrorist organization. So I think the odds of them not complying are a lot better than zero. And if that happens, I think it's actually a better case scenario for not just the U.S., but globally.
I like where we're sitting right now. I know people are complaining that gas prices haven't come down quite fast enough, but I think that's going to happen. It's just, that's the nature of how gas prices work, and I understand. I'd rather have it happen yesterday than 2 weeks from now. I think they're going to come down. I like where we stand. What's the Atlanta Fed GDP number right now? What's the estimate?
Yesterday was 3.
3? So we got an economy with oil back down. It was touching 69 earlier today. I like that. Gas prices are going to come back down. We've got a GDP estimate of 3%.
Ooh, today 2.5.
Okay, I don't like that as much. I shouldn't have asked you for an
but it's above
update.
2.
I think that's a pretty good spot, but all I'm saying, and I'm with you on this, Mike, I don't know about Iran cutting this great deal in 60 days. And I actually do think President Trump, if he doesn't like it, will say we're going to go back in. And unless we've got control of the strait, a lot of this good stuff could reverse. I'm hopeful. I think they're pushing for a good deal, but we're not quite out of the woods yet. We're in a better part of the woods. We're not out of the woods yet.
Just a quick comment that I've been reading about, and you guys jump in on terms of the gas stations. And Jackie, you sort of hinted about this on profit margins. A lot of these gas stations are sort of like these individual owned guys who are on the corner at a Chevron or a Shell station. Their profit margins are so thin that that's why they boost prices immediately. And then on the way down, they tend to not bring down the retail price so much because they're trying to recover the margins that they lost. And then eventually they bring it down. So that's why it's slower on the way down than it is on the way up. These are, and again, I'm not rooting against the American people, but if these are also individual owners of gas stations who were also getting paid, they're just trying to recoup a little bit of the margins that they lost on that way down, which is why they're slower to bring it down. I don't know if that makes people feel better. It comes down slowly, but if these are also individual guys, you know, work in a small Shell shop on the corner, it's not like big oil gouging you filling up your tank.
Well,
I don't know if that makes it more palpable.
Sure. It definitely will not be big oil gouging because President Trump made clear he would come after them if they did. So, yes, businesses are, you name a business, as their input costs go up, they raise prices quickly, and then they lower them as things normalize a lot slower. But let supply and demand come in here. So someone's going to lower their price enough to get you into the gas station, so then more people are going to drive there. So this will be fine. I understand no one wants to pay $5 a gallon for gas, but it's coming down. It was short term, very short term. It's coming down.
Big Oil doesn't own the gas stations. They don't own them, period.
Yeah, that's what I said, just to make sure.
They don't own gasoline stations. The vast majority are independently owned and operated. Some are owned by I don't know, a family that might own a few of them locally. Now, the refineries own a small percentage of gas stations in the United States. But, are we going to get mad about Apple? Apple's a monopoly. Apple is a monopoly, and Apple screws the apps for money.
I still don't think Apple's a monopoly.
They're
I know
a monopoly.
you do, but I know we can't debate that right now.
I'm just saying, U.S. Energy and the oil companies, the majors, the smaller shale producers, the refiners, rescued this country, rescued this world during the Iran conflict. Oil is falling, and quite frankly, we're in a position where, if you looked at the inventory numbers yesterday, if you look at the kind of implied gasoline demand, it looked like there was some demand destruction, like a pullback, particularly seasonally in gasoline consumption. But that's misleading because the refiners are not putting up 10 million barrels in terms of distillates, gasoline and diesel. So you better be careful, everyone, because the supply and demand equation, supplies are still incredibly tight, and it could snap back, and we could be in another place where prices got to go much higher to destroy demand. I've never made an enemy out of our energy companies because it is a dirty, difficult business, and we ought to kiss the ground that gasoline costs under $4 a gallon.